which involve replacement decisions, so-called replacement. Uh, Remember earlier when we talk about uh, useful life of the products, we talk about the decisions for replacing existing equipment, and we were discussing about which one is more economically sensible. Uh, at that time, the decision seemed to be quite simple, quite straightforward, and it's not wrong. It's just that it's a little bit simplified. But now we look at the replacement problem in a more systematic way. There, when we first brought up this notion of replacement, it was more like a special case, and that we may need to consider. We know that some machines they use until a certain stage. We uh, because of uh, the useful life is not enough for making comparison, so we find a replacement so that we have the same the same analysis period, so that we can make comparison. Of course, if we consider uh, equivalent annual worth or equivalent annual cost, then we don't need to have the same lifespan. But if we need to have the machine, whatever machines, whatever technology serving the entire required project period, we need to have a replacement. But again, over there, we are just forcing to have that kind of situation happens uh, with finite project life. Here is focusing purely on the replacement decision, or purely on the replacement decision, and and again there will be this new notion of economic service life, meaning that previously when we look at the machines or the equipment in service, we are assuming that a lot of costs over time will be the same. But if you think of it, when the machines get older and older, the maintenance costs will be typically higher. And also, when the machines get older for some period of time, we need to have a bigger overhaul, or it may break down. We need to repair them. Newer machine, particularly with warranty, uh, uh, chances are the you don't need to pay anything for the repair. Okay, so there are these different issues involved in replacement, and in the end, we can also consider the tax. Probably not going in detail. You probably understand that uh, uh, there's a depreciation consideration on the asset, and so it will have different tax consideration. If you replace it, the new investment, in fact, will be causing the difference on the 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 money occurred at the time and resulting tax differences. So there are a few terminologies that we need to explain. One will be the sunk cost. Okay, we have discussed about this, but here is basically it's a notion that we also want to bring up. So when we are making decisions, okay, we are thinking, okay, we have invested so much money on this machine. If we sell it right now, then although we get salvage value, but then the money that we have spent, right, and the money we'll lose certain amount of money on on the product, and we have spent a certain amount of money repairing the machine, and this amount of money is quite big. So if you think of it, you will be misled by such kind of notion, because the loss when you sell the machine and get some money back, the difference you think that it's lost, but that's something that have already happened. Right? There's nothing that you can do. If you think of the repair cost, you say, "Oh, I spent so much money for the repair. Definitely, we shouldn't replace the old machine because we spent so much money." Or if we repair it, we'll lose certain. If we replace it, we'll lose certain value on the machine, and the repair loss, that amount is quite big. We shouldn't replace it. That will be a wrong notion, a wrong idea, because whatever that you paid is paid already. That's the sunk cost. That shouldn't influence your decision. Your decision will be based on now and the future. That's very important. Once you have a wrong perception on the sunk cost, it will impact your decision, and you will have a wrong decision, right? So that's, I mean, theoretically it's like this, but when you think of it, I think chances are you may not make the wrong decision. You just don't want to suddenly come out with the strange ideas of I have paid a lot of money. I just paid a lot of money on the repair. So if I replace it, I lost those money. Those money that you pay for repair is gone. That you need to know. What you need to do is objectively taking all the cash flow from now to the future and make the analysis. What have you spent? Doesn't matter it's small or big, they are gone. You cannot consider them. They shouldn't influence your decision. Okay, that's a very important point. But hopefully you will make that kind of consideration. Okay, so sunk costs, again, people may not take this term seriously. I say, okay, I understand. Sunk costs, things happen in the past will not influence our decision. I won't make this kind of mistake, hopefully. Okay. And sometimes you bought a new machine. There's a trade-in allowance, which will reduce the cost that you pay for the new equipment. So you don't need to pay the entire amount for the new equipment. Okay, that's also something that will happen. You buy a new car, they say, okay, if you take the old car and bring the old car to us, we'll allow you to deduct certain amount of money from the payment of the new car. For them, it on the one hand, it is the it is to attract customers to them to replace their new car, providing additional financial incentive. On the other hand, the old car, for car companies, they may be able to refurbish the car and sell it at a higher price. And usually the trade-in allowance, it is to some extent attractive to buyer, but that not much, because it will be lower than market value. Even if it's a little bit higher, I think it will depends on the assessment of the auto dealer. They know cars better than you do, so they know how much it worth. They are willing to provide something maybe a little bit higher than the market value to you, but then to them, it's a good buy, because you only know the average price. They know whether or not your car is higher or lower than the market value. So there's this trade-in allowance. And another part will be we will have the existing machine, existing equipment. It's called Defender. It's easier to understand. Rather than saying old, new, is seem to be a little strange. But then we say Defender or challenger. Challenger will be the replacing one. Defender will be the replaced one. It will be replaced, and we will use this challenger to replace the defender, whether or not we want to do that. And current market value is the defender's current market value, selling price. Okay. Again, there will be salvage value. The salvage value will influence on our tax, and buying new one will have new costs at the time, and so on. It will not be that straightforward in the analysis, but for the purpose of illustrating replacement, we tend to ignore those factors for the time being. The number may not be precisely correct. The approach may not be, in terms of detailed computation on the exact cost or benefit, may not be exactly correct. But for the time being, we simplify that part only to show you that how the framework of the decision is and how the decision can be made accordingly. Okay, just a reminder that the detailed computation may not be precisely what it should be done. Just like earlier, all the earlier analysis, at a certain point, we seem to simplify something that we just said that we need to consider, but we just don't have the space to include every factor at every occasion, making the analysis more and more complicated, resulting us not being able to focus on the framework and the key issues at that point. Okay. So here is one example. You may have the original investment. You bought the machine with $20,000. That is your original investment. And now here we are not really looking at time value of money. We're just talking about this value and the market value at the time. Right? You want to make the replacement decision, and the difference will be 10,000. So if you sold the defender, the original investment, then you get this amount of money, 10,000 back. You seem to lose this amount of money. Okay. Yeah. And also, over this period of time, you have already spent 5,000 fixing the machine. And again, doesn't matter how much money you spend on fixing that machine. So these two parts are just some costs you won't consider. You will consider the market value. Okay, the market value. But how much money you will get, others doesn't matter. This is what you will get. So there are two approaches. These two approaches are identical. It's just that for engineering economic analysis, you have to have the right concept. You cannot just say, "Oh, I want to put this cash flow here, or I want to put it there." The reason that you put it at a certain point and you call it something, it has to have some meaning, because we are talking about cash flow, and so either it's net cash flow or it's just like what we had previously. If we do this net income analysis, or we do this net cash flow analysis, they have their meaning, precise meaning, and their computational approaches will be different accordingly. Although eventually they give you the same result. Okay, so here we said that we can do this cash flow approach, or we can do this opportunity cost approaches. Cash flow approach, we deal with the money, right? The cash flow. So just remember that we will sell the old machine. We'll get from here, you know that $10,000 back. So how should we treat this 10,000? How should we treat 10,000? We can attribute this 10,000 for the new machine. Okay, consider this 10,000 is part of the new machine cash flow, and this 10,000 can help us to alleviate the cost that we need to spend on the old machine. So it can be considered part of the down payment, or it is a down payment towards the purchasing machine. Okay, it adds it is the money that actually floating around, and it is the money that we can use for purchasing new machine. So we can consider that. That's cash flow, basic cash flow. Another way is we can treat this salvage value of the old machine, right? And we look at it from the old machine's perspective, and we said, okay, we'll keep the old machine, but then we'll this additional $10,000 will be considered as the opportunity cost of the old machine, of keeping the old machine. Okay, so this 15,000 will not appear in the new machine. It will be considered the loss of old machine. The loss of in the old machine, choosing old machine, will be equal to the gain of 10,000 in the new machine. So it can be on either side, and the result apparently will be the same. However, we need to put it in a certain place and for the right reason and for the right concept, so that our analysis makes sense. Okay, so these are the contrasts, but again, these two can both reach the same decision, because that 10,000 salvage value will either add to the challenger or as a minus term in the defender, right? Either or, so the result will be the same. Let's look at the cash flow approach. So the cash flow approach will be like this. We have defender. The situation is like this. Like right now we are at time 0. We are looking towards the future. And here we simplify the situation. We just say, okay, yeah, we just have three more periods. Okay, and what will happen for defender is, again, the problem is still simplified. Like we have maintenance at this value, okay, or operating cost at this value. Operating cost for the defender, but it's higher. It's 8,000. The challenger will be only 6,000. But challenger, you need to buy a new machine. Okay, but for the defender, there's no other cost. Just here, here, here. In the end, we still have some salvage value, assuming that it's 2,500. If we replace the defender, the old machine, with the new machine, a few things will happen. One is we need to pay for the new machine, which is 15,000. Okay, it's different from the old machine, right? Old machine is 20,000. But again, this is just an example. So don't worry too much about it. And we sell the old machine, we can get 10,000 back. Okay, this 10,000 will be a deduction term of this 15,000. So this can be considered an income of the challenger. Okay, and the annual operating cost or maintenance cost, operating and maintenance cost, will be lower than the old one. So although we have some additional cost, and the new one have lower annual operating and maintenance costs, and in the end of the third year, the salvage value is higher. Okay, I guess that will be even before analysis. I think we do see some potential. Yeah, here is additional 5,000 that we need to spend. But then we have lower operation and maintenance costs, and in the end we have higher salvage value. So we can do the computation for the, again, using the cash flow approach. For the Defender, we can compute based on 12% of MARR, and we can compute this. This is the salvage value, 3 period. We find the present value. This is operating and maintenance cost for 3 period. Each period is 8,000. This is the overall cost, the present worth of the overall cost. And we convert it using the present value to annual cost. Again, what we need to compare is always the annual cost, because they may have different periods, right? Different useful life. Although this particular case, it did not happen, but let's just start by looking at the annual equivalent worth. So annual equivalent worth is 7,259.1 is the cost. Defender. So if you keep the old machine, on average, every year you need to pay this amount of money, annual equivalent worth. If you take the Challenger, again, we compute take all of the value, compute its present worth. You can see that present worth is lower already, but let's just still, for the sake of comparison, let's just change the present worth to annual equivalent worth, which is minus 6,451.79. This is the annual cost from now on until the end of the third year. Every year, like year 1, year 2, year 3, this is annual equivalent cost. Is minus 6,451.79, which is smaller than minus 7,259.1. So our decision will be replacing the Defender, replacing this old machine now. Okay, so we have Defender, we have Challenger. We need to consider the right cash flow and compute the annual equivalent worth, or annual equivalent here because it's just cost, and annual equivalent cost, and compare that, and whichever has smaller costs, we will choose it. So in this case, it's Challenger. So our decision will be replacing the Defender. Okay, not too complicated. You just need to find the annual equivalent worth. If we look at it from the opportunity cost perspective, okay, so that $10,000, that $10,000 salvage value, where does it go? For the cash flow, it happens on the Challenger side. We have additional 10,000. Now we said, let's not consider that. Let's just consider that part, a part of Defender. That is, if the Defender decide to continue, or if we decide to continue using the Defender, then we miss the chance of getting $10,000. So we consider that as an opportunity cost. This is also a very interesting contrast. I think I mentioned about both cases in the past too. Opportunity cost is also a very important concept. It's real, it's not false. When you compare these two, one will get that amount of money, and you said, I don't have cost. I don't have a cost. I just keep whatever I do, and there's no cost. But in reality, if this amount of money did not or was not transferred to the other side, so for you, you are losing the chance of getting this amount of money. That's the opportunity cost. Just like the restaurant case I use for describing opportunity cost. You cannot say you and your family members, you say, don't go to work. You don't need, you cannot say that, oh, there's no cost. There's no cost. There's a cost. The cost will be, if they go out to work, they will make certain amount of money. But because they did not go to work, yeah, we did not replace the old machine. So we did not allow them to work. So they are working with us and they don't have income. They don't have income. And that we need to consider is the loss of their potential salaries outside. Those are our opportunity costs. And in this example, you can probably see more clearly. Right? If we only consider defender, yeah, we consider defender, and this will be the amount that we may have obtained if we sold the old machine. But anyway, these two approaches will get us the same result. So in fact, before computation, we know already. We just take this amount, which is pass, and add it to the defender and minus. So here we also deduct this, but it appear here. So both sides we deduct 10,000. So the result will be, the decision will be the same, but computation will be a little bit different. So the defender goes to this cash flow diagram, and the challenger the cash flow diagram, but without the $10,000 that we can use towards the payment of new machine. So we do the computation. Still we compute the present worth, and we find its equivalent annual worth by multiply by this parameter given P, find A. We get annual equivalent cost in this particular case is minus 11,000 and so on. Challenger, okay, now it doesn't have the 10,000 salvage value, but we compute its present worth of the cost, and compute its annual equivalent cost. And again, we get a value which is smaller than defender. So either way, either using cash flow approach or use opportunity cost approach, we'll choose to replace the defender. Okay, so this is just relatively straightforward. And another important notion is economic service life. Then we'll make the problem a little bit more realistic and a little bit more complicated. Is we all know that having a machine, we have initial purchase and we have operating cost, right? Even if the operating cost is the same over the time, the ownership cost will be the average ownership cost, or if you share the ownership cost, the initial payment or so-called capital cost that you pay in the beginning, or the money related to capital costs, chances are it will decline. Okay. But you also need to look at the salvage value. You also need to look at salvage value. Even if operating cost is the same for the entire year, you can see the trade-off between your initial payment and your salvage value. It may still influence your decision, because the ownership cost, the cost of original product shared by the year will be smaller and smaller, and the cost of sales value will be smaller and smaller too, and maybe there is a trade-off between those two. We want to get rid of the machine at certain time, which will optimize the annual equivalent worth. But in general, what actually happened is the ownership costs, if we sort of average the ownership cost by the number of years in service, the longer we put it in service, the ownership cost annually should be lower and lower, right? Because it just happened in the beginning. If you have more years to share the cost, so the annual capital costs will be lower if you have longer service life. However, typically the operating cost is higher and higher over the year, as we said, because the machines get older, so we need to maintain the machine more frequently, and it's probably prone to break down, more prone to break down. So we need to have sometimes overhaul of the machine, sometimes major repair of the machine, and so on. So the operating costs, if you think of it, annually it will get higher and higher. So this cost is going lower and lower, and operating cost is getting higher and higher. If we look at them annually, and there should be a break-even point. Okay, so this will be a very typical situation in many analysis. Usually we have a fixed cost, we have a variable cost, and here is not fixed cost and variable cost, but basically there's fixed costs will get lower and lower annually as the time gets longer, and the so-called variable cost will go up as time go longer. So your operating costs will be higher and higher over time. Because of the nature of the two curves, chances are their intersection point here is not very accurate, depending on the curve. We should be able, if we add two together, we get this curve. Chances are we can find a point where these two values, the addition of these two values, may give us the highest, the lowest annual equivalent cost. Okay, because later when this go up, this curve go up at a speed faster than the decline of this the sharing of the capital cost, then we should stop earlier, right? This has this diminishing reduction. This has increasing additional cost. So we know that at a certain point, the total cost will be coming down and going up. So that's what we need to balance. So there's probably not a easy way to do it. When we want to analyze this economic service life of a specific asset, we need to look at it year by year. If we use it for 1 year, these are the cash flow. If we use it for 2 years, it will be like this. So these two are capital costs. These are operating costs. Operating costs are getting bigger and bigger every year. Capital costs, well, not exactly the same, but capital cost, this is investment. This part will not be the same, but the salvage value will get lower. Okay, salvage value will get lower. You see that lower, so that will influence the denominator of the capital cost, numerator of the capital cost as time go by. So if we consider if we consider 3 years, it will be like this. Consider 7 years, it will be like this. And there could be additional cost there, additional cost here. And the salvage value is very low. Okay. So when times go longer, there will be even more cost that we need to consider. So it's not that we buy a machine, it can be used for 7 years and let's exhaust it. This is the most profitable way, or this is the most cost-effective way. It's not. You have to do your analysis. You have to take all of the costs into consideration, and then you find a so-called economic service line. Again, we can do the computation for each one. We can do it very thoroughly, but I'm just going to flip through them and assuming that you know how to compute. So we start by looking at this n equal to 1, and we can compute its annual equivalent cost, right? If it happens, right, every year you replace it basically. And if we have infinite life, right, so you just need to do one cycle. You don't need to consider that. And you found out that it's 11,700. Okay, and if we every 2 years we replace it, right? And we have infinite time horizon. So this kind of thing just happen recurrently, and we just need to find one cycle, and the rest of them will be the same. Okay, so we find this annual equivalent cost for if we replace it every 2 years. Replace the machine every 2 years. We found out that the annual equivalent cost is lower because the sharing of the capital cost, the reduction of the sharing of the capital cost is higher than the increase of the operating cost. So it's still good that we use the machine longer. Similarly, we can compute if we replace it every 3 years, or we replace it every 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, or 7 years, which is assuming that this is the end of the useful life of the machine. And we do the computation. And we found out that when n was small, the number of years in use, the usage, the annual equivalent cost is getting lower and lower. Again, it is because the reduction in sharing of the capital cost is still bigger than the increase of the operating cost, annual operating cost. So, but at a certain point, we found out that it suddenly goes up. That is to say that if we use the machine for the entire 7 years, and the result will be the annual equivalent cost will be higher than if we replace the machine every 6 years. So every 6 years we replace the machine, even though we haven't exhausted the usage of the machine, but based on all the cost all the information, net cash flow information, and we assume that such kind of situation will repeat. The cash flow, the happens of the cash flow will be recurrent. So the strategy will be replace the machine every 6 years because it gives us the lowest average at annual equivalent cost, you look at the cash flow, it will be just the same value over time, and all of them will be this value. So this value is lower than these value. So every 6 years, we'll replace the machine, assuming that our decision horizon is from now until the end. There's no end. Things will just happen recurrently. Okay, so this 6 year will be economic service life for this particular problem. Right? We know that it can be up to 7 years, and we know all the cash flow, and we do the analysis. We said, okay, we'll stop at 6, and we'll replace it, and we'll replace it every 6 years. Okay, that's a simple case. And so that you know that we need to decide on planning horizon. Previously, we assumed that it's forever. And there are also other things that we can decide. We need to decide what kind of technology that we are going to use, relevant cash flow information for sure, and decision framework. And there's a little bit of complication. That is, we are making decision of whether or not we want to replace it now, or we can still use the old machine for a little bit more time, and then we replace it. Okay, these are different kind of decision, but basically here we are still talking about under the infinite planning horizon. So if we want to replace the old machine, okay, and the old machine will be replaced after X years, and afterwards, since we have replaced it, we will use the Challenger for the rest of the time. Here is replacing the Defender now. Again, we will use the Challenger for the rest of the time. Okay. Well, here there's still a little bit of the consideration. Okay, but basically we'll use the same Challenger for the rest of the time. And an example, let's just look at example for the Defender. This is it's 5 years annual equivalent cost. Okay, here is still annual equivalent cost. So here the Defender behave like this. First year, second year, third year, it gets bigger already. So we will replace it with the same Defender. And every 2 years, we will replace it. And the annual equivalent cost will be the lowest for the Defender, right? For the Defender. And the Challenger is a little bit different. Challenger has this kind of behavior. And Challenger is also for 5 years. And we look at its annual equivalent cost. It was high in the beginning if you only use it for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. When you use it for 4 years, then it's already lower than if you use it for 5 years. So what you do is you do it for 4 years, then you'll replace it and do it for 4 years. And the annual equivalent cost will be 5,826, which is the lowest for Challenger. Okay. So we look at the situation. Should we replace the Defender now? No, because the Defender, if you do it every 2 years, right, it's lower, right? You do it 2 years, it's lower. The annual equivalent was for the for the Challenger is 4 years and it's 5,826, right? But should we replace it because we are using this, and if we are at the end of a second year, there's definitely we will not replace it. So when should we replace it? Of course, we can do the comparison, and we will basically compute that if we replace it at different year, and what kind of marginal cost or profit that is going to get. Of course, it will not be as simple as what it is shown here, because as I said, the expected the salvage value and other costs may incur, but we can definitely do an analysis by including all these cost factor for marginal analysis. That is, at which year, if we at second year or the third year, if we replace it, fourth year, if we replace it, and so on, and see when will be the best time. Okay, so here it is again in the step we'll first say that, okay, what if we keep it, and if we keep it versus we change the new the Challenger, right? If we keep it, again, we can use opportunity cost or income from the, now here we will look at the opportunity cost because this is from the Defender. So we can compare this, the cost on the third year if you decided not to change, and comparing with the cost with the Challenger. But Challenger, we know that if we get the Challenger and use it for every 4 years, change it for over every 4 years, the cost will definitely use it for every 4 years, replace it for every 4 years. The cost, annual equivalent cost will be 5,826. So this is to be compared with this one. If that is the case, okay, that is the case when we consider this additional amount of money that we may be able to get. So here we can see that we should replace it because the annual equivalent cost will be lower than keeping the old machine. Okay, so doesn't matter what it happened. Here, now we are just talking about the marginal analysis. Right? If we look at them, we say, okay, we shouldn't replace it, but we did not consider what actually happened. But if we consider this opportunity cost and so on, and then we will find that we should replace it. Do not keep the Defender beyond its economic service life. Okay, do not keep it because it's already its economic service life, right? Its economy already going forward will be worse than this. The only thing that we want to see is if we do not go forward from this value and replace it with a new machine, whether or not this replacement will be better than this old machine going forward. That's why we sort of consider this marginal analysis. And it turns out that we shouldn't keep it because going forward, the cost will be higher and higher for Defender. But for the new one, it will for sure go through its economic service life. So its annual equivalent cost will be this value. If the next year going beyond the economic service life of Defender is already worse than the Challenger, will replace it. Okay. again, it's not just look at this. We need to do marginal analysis. Here, it seems that we shouldn't replace. But if not, then when should we replace? Okay, shouldn't replace. We think it's economic. Like look at this, we at least in 2 years we shouldn't replace it. But after 2 years, when should we replace it? That's with this challenger. So this is the analysis, marginal analysis. Again, these are costs are just created there to serve the purpose. It appeared out of nowhere. Don't worry about this. When you do the analysis, you should gather these data and making sure that they are correct so that you can utilize them in the analysis. In the analysis, it shows, again, based on the result, the if you take it to the 3rd year, and this is your annual equivalent worth, is worse than the annual equivalent worth or the cost, or worse than the cost. The cost higher, this is higher, this is lower. This is the challenger's annual equivalent cost is lower. So after 2 years, which is the economic service life, that is, with 2 years is optimal. That value is better than challengers, so you shouldn't wait. But how about the 3rd year? When you come to the 3rd year, you found out that it's already worse, so you will replace it the 3rd year, and you will use this value continuously in the future. If we have this infinite horizon, infinite planning horizon, okay. If we have finite planning horizon, then there will be different possible combination. We use the old machine for 2 cycles. We use the old machine with 1 year and 4 years. We know that for the new machine, 4 years is optimal cycle, right? We saw that the challenger, then we get for 4 years, then use it for 3 years because the planning horizon is 8 years. Or we keep the defender for 2 years because it's still optimal, and allow us to use the challenger for 4 years because it's optimal, and use another 2 years. So it's a combination of different cases. Okay, or we can even say that, okay, let's try. We use the defender for 3 years, and we use challenger for 5 years. This doesn't seem to make sense here. This doesn't make sense. Or maybe we should still try to keep the challenger in its optimal economic service life, which is 4 years and additional year. Or they are just different kind of combination, many different kind of combination. Okay, and we know the defender and challenger, their annual equivalent cost, so we can come up with different combination. For each of them, we need to compute to see what will be the new annual equivalent cost. So for option 1, we can compute. Option 2, option 3. Oh, it makes sense because we use the defender for 2 years, which is economic service life, 2 years. Then we use the challenger for 4 years. Right? It's also economic service life. Then we still have 2 more years. We just use the challenger for 2 more years. Maybe because this is to replace the old one. So although one may ask, oh, maybe we should take the defender here, but the idea is changing from defender to challenger. We don't get the defender back, assuming that this is such kind of decision. So we'll change to the challenger, and challenger will will repeat its cycle. But since we will end at 8 years, so the other 2 years will be fun Challenger 2. But if we take all the combination, we found out that this combination give us the best result, which makes sense, right? We can also compute option 4, and right from the beginning I say it doesn't seem to make sense, but the cost difference is not much. Option 5, option 6, right? All these numbers are bigger than 25,217, right? These are bigger. They're getting smaller and getting bigger, okay, incidentally. So the result was taking the old ones and Challenger will be used after 2 years for 4 years, which is its economic service life. Then use it for another 2 years to meet the requirement of planning horizon of 8 years. Okay, so there's this tax consideration. Again, I wouldn't go into the detail on the tax consideration. It will be this difference of book value and tax credit kind of situation as we described previously. So when we decide on when we want to terminate the products, and whenever we replace the machine, there's new costs incurred and so on. Those need to be considered for adjustment so that our computation will be more accurate. Okay, and there's no, in fact, nothing to talk about. Just that you need to understand the consequence of the difference, because here we did not really talk about depreciation, but there should be this depreciation, and there should be this the difference between book value and the market value, so that we can make adjustment. Okay, so I think although there's a capital budgeting as you can see, I think in the previous week, in my recording, I also sort of went through the rest of the contents that I was originally planned to share, but because of the time limit, I wouldn't go into these other parts. But today I still try to go through decision tree analysis and also replacement analysis. The last part is about capital budgeting, which I mentioned last week. Capital budgeting is very similar to what we had. That is, we have finite planning horizon. In capital budgeting, it means that we have finite budget. Right? Earlier, our decision doesn't incur finite budget, but also our decision was only on mutually exclusive project. Mutually exclusive. That is, we will only choose one out of many, the best one out of all the alternatives. But in real world, the decision problems are typically choosing some out of a number of projects. Every year, our company need to embark on a number of projects. We want to make this product, we want to extend this product, we want to try to build a platform, we want to have some investment, and these different projects, like different kind of project, and with a limited amount of budget. So what the true decision that we need to make is, out of probably tens or hundreds of projects that we may be able to embark with the amount of budget that we have, which combination should we choose, financially speaking or economically speaking? Just look what would be the the combination of these choices that give us the best expected value, even without this probabilistic computation, assuming that all the values are given. If we consider the probabilistic nature of the problem, it will be overwhelmed. We will be overwhelmed. There are just too many choices. In fact, just considering the combination of different projects within the budget, it will be way too many already. So for capital budgeting, of course, intuitively you know that what we'll do is, oh, let's take these two, or maybe these two, or maybe these two. Oh, these are still below budget. Okay, let's take a third one. Then we'll do that incrementally, right? We will probably do that incrementally. But you can imagine that in the beginning there are n opportunity. We'll take n choose 2, then we'll take n choose 3, then we'll take n choose 4, then we take n choose 5, depending on what n is. As the n choose something is getting bigger, then the combination is getting way too big to enumerate. So what people will do is still find some heuristic so that we can quickly screen out some opportunities so that more profitable ones can be left, and so there are different ways of helping us to select the candidates faster so that we can come up with our final decision on the choices or the combination of project within our budget. So that's basically what will be discussed here. But it's something a little bit different. But then again, we probably won't have enough time to go through them. So I guess I'll pause here and still want to emphasize what I said in the beginning. That is, although we are under this a little bit difficult circumstances in learning, I still strongly encourage you to make the best out of it. For this course, it's not the most difficult subject of all of your learning in Taiwan, or even for your entire degree, but it is something more practical and useful, and with a limited amount of time and ways of communication, and I hope that you can still get the best out of it. And as I said, the final exam was changed into the homework due to the focus of trying to get everybody improving on their learning effect, that is disclosing the problems and allowing to investigate more so that you know how to solve the problems, and getting a sense of what we may think that certain subjects are more important. And I was also afraid that maybe suddenly some people cannot get online properly and couldn't get the exam, and also other issues. So I changed the final exam into the homework. It's not to simply to allow you to have easy way to get through the course. It is just to deal with the problem that I just mentioned. And I hope that for the project, you can use also a little bit of your imagination and try as hard as you can to analyze the specific case that you identify, so that you can demonstrate how well you can utilize the knowledge that you learn from this course. The real world problem will be a lot more difficult, I have to say. But knowing doesn't mean that you will use it properly. Only if you do more practice, and that you can really convert this knowledge into a skill that you can use in the future. Okay, so next week I I look forward to your presentation since it's still a little bit earlier than other final exams. Hopefully that you have time to better prepare for your project. And I will also provide you, I think TAs will also join the your presentation so that we can provide you hopefully some feedback on your analysis. Other than that, again, stay safe. Try your best to stay safe. Try not to have too much interaction, at least for the next 2 weeks, and we'll see how the situation will be by then. If the infection rate continue to grow, the government may decide to have level 4 alert, that is a total lockdown. Particularly in Taipei City and New Taipei City, we have more infection than others. Even if the government decided to have partial lockdown, Taipei and New Taipei City are the most likely places where it will be exercised. So I think that you probably don't need to worry too much about the food and so on, since you are staying in the school. I think school will use every means to definitely ensure your safety and definitely that will not be an issue. I think people living outside may have bigger issue. Okay, just stay safe. Okay, so I'll see you next week. Talk to you next week. Okay, bye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.